while we're waiting for Kay to get those technical issues fixed, babe, if you just want to come on, introduce yourself, let everyone know what you were incarcerated for, and just kind of give us a rundown of your story.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So basically, I was working for 23 years and 7 months for a company that was considered a credit card company / bank. I involved myself with someone that was not making good choices, which makes me not making good choices. And I ended up getting arrested on September 13th, 2019, being terminated from my job. I had 12 felonies, and I hired an attorney, and the case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. And I still didn't have...
Babe, sorry to interject, but can you go back a little and let us know exactly what you were arrested for? What were those felony charges that you got caught up with, and who were the friends that you got intertwined with? Like, tell us that story.
Hold on.
What happened?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hey, Kay.
Hey, I am so sorry. These are new headphones. I do apologize. Just Rico, thank you for getting started. And again, let me reintroduce a good friend of mine. Mo is here to tell her story. And go ahead and jump in after Just Rico just asked you a question, and I'll follow up with some follow-up questions. So go right ahead.
Okay. So I met the person at a barbershop, believe it or not, taking my kids for a haircut. It started out, he was selling gift cards and they were half price, and that's how I became friends with him. And at the time, I was taking care of my sister's 4 kids and my own 3 kids as a single parent alone. So to be able to get the gift cards for half price, that was a benefit to me. So our relationship, our friendship continued for a couple of years. And it came to fact that I did not know he was involved in identity theft, but that was the 12 charges I received that are still showing up on my record, but they also are showing up as dismissed. I retained a lawyer and I gave him $10,000, and he said, if you never see a courtroom in the state, I'll only charge you $3,500 and I'll give you back $6,500. It'll be the best investment you ever made. I gave him the money. I was arrested in September 2019. The case was thrown out in January of 2020. The hardest part of all this was finding a job. No one wanted to hire me with 12 aggravated identity theft charges. Even though it showed on the clerk of courts that it was dismissed for lack of evidence, no, I could not find a job. Finally, I landed a job in May of 2020. Was working, everything in my life was starting to go back into place. And in January 13th, 2021, the feds indicted me. I was arrested in the federal courthouse. I was booked, and I was bonded out, where I was awaiting the hearings.
Wait. Okay, so I'm sorry, Kay, but I just have a quick question. So were you rebooked on those same 12 charges that they kind of like?
No. I was booked on one count of aggravated identity theft by the feds. And the reason I was booked, because when the police originally arrested me, I had purchased 2 tires from the guy who was selling the gift cards. for my car. And they were in the trunk of my car. And when the police came on September 13th, 2019, I told the truth that I knew, because they knew about the guy. Some of the people that worked for him got arrested, and they said that they worked for a white lady, and they gave my first name and what kind of car I drove. The reason they knew the kind of car I drove because they bought me 2 tires. So when I went to the original state arrest, I told the police the truth. I bought 2 tires from the guy. I never knew that that would incriminate me to federal. So when the feds indicted me, the money or the account that he opened to buy my 2 tires and everything else he bought that day was what I was charged with.
Okay,
and that.
Mo, I have a question. So you said that the charges were dismissed, but
Right.
you're also
in the state, they
saying
were dismissed.
You're also saying that they picked the charges back up, and that's how you ended up getting charged.
Federal.
So how did they pick the charges back up? Because if the charges were dropped and your attorney said you would never see a day in court, basically saying that you would not be arrested, how were you able to be recharged?
Well, my first arrest was state. It was not federal.
For the same charge?
Yeah, because I worked for a bank / credit card company. I believe to this day that my lawyer set it up. I believe he contacted the feds and he turned me in so he could keep my $6,500, but I can't prove that.
Okay, so let's jump right into, you were charged with aggravated identity theft.
Right.
You were found guilty, and technically, yeah, you were found guilty. So what happened after you were found guilty?
Well, I took a plea because my lawyer told me if I took it to trial that I would face decades in prison.
Okay, so you took the plea, and how much time did you get?
The minimum mandatory, 24 months.
And how much time did you serve?
6 months and 6 days.
Okay, so did you self-report? Did you have time to plan?
When I was sentenced, the day of my sentencing, I asked the judge for 2 weeks to turn myself in because I needed to make arrangements for my minor children that I was leaving behind.
How old were your children at the time?
One was 16, the other one had just turned 18, and then I had a 21-year-old. Okay. So the judge gave me the 14 days, and he told me to turn myself in to the Miami Federal Courthouse before 12 noon on October 4th, 2021.
Okay, so you turned yourself in, and where did you turn yourself into?
Miami Federal Courthouse, downtown Miami, the Southern District. I arrived there probably about 11 a.m.
So was this a federal hold until you got placed?
Well, this was where you would turn yourself in and you would wait to be transported to the federal detention center, which they took you through an underground tunnel. But to say the least, when I arrived that day, when I left my house, my feet were not swollen. There was nothing wrong with me. I took a shower. I got dressed as normal. When I arrived to the courthouse and said goodbye to my family because they could not go in with me, I went upstairs. I was escorted by an officer. And I went to this room where they fingerprint you and book you. When I arrived to that place, all of a sudden my ankles were swollen like big balloons out of nowhere. So the officer had to call a lieutenant to come from the jail to this holding area to see me. because normally with the federal prisons or the jails, they want to handcuff you and shackle you. And so she needed to get permission that I did not wear shackles. So they gave that permission. I went in a holding cell where I was freezing for hours, never had anything to eat. Remember, I turned myself in at 11 a.m. At 4 p.m., they took myself along with about 14 men. I was at the end of the line because I didn't have shackles and I was escorted by an officer. They also allowed me to wear my handcuffs in front, which the feds believe it has to be behind you because I had an injury in 2016 and I have a hard time with my right shoulder. When I arrived to the jail, the officer immediately removed the handcuffs, put my hands behind my back, and cuffed me behind my back. We had to walk underground in a tunnel for about a half a mile. When I arrived to the holding cell, I was the only female there. Everybody else was men. I stayed there for, I don't know how long, but they brought me something to eat, and the food looked like dog food. I closed the tray and sat there until it was time to move on. After that, they called me, they strip searched me, they took all my clothes and put them in a box. They gave me a uniform to put on. They let me make one phone call to my family to let them know that I was being booked. And from that, they took me upstairs.
So, babe, let me ask you a quick question. Are you saying, like, throughout all this that you're innocent, that you didn't do anything?
I'm not saying I'm innocent because I was involved with the person, and at that point, you know, I was honest with the police. I made a poor choice getting involved with him, and I did buy 2 tires. I did incriminate myself because if I had not said that, the feds would have had nothing against me. But I did involve myself with someone who was doing a criminal act, and you know what? Sometimes when you make a poor choice, you have to take accountability for your actions.
Right. So, but what happened? Okay, so what happened to the guy that you were involved with?
They finally caught up with him and they sentenced him to, he got double the time. I believe he got 48 months. And then the 2 guys that got caught at Tire Kingdom, they each got 24 months like me. There was 4 of us that got sentenced on this one Tire Kingdom account.
So were you the original one caught, or who was the original person that were caught? Did you like snitch on the other ones?
No, it was a guy. I didn't know the guys that worked for him. I only knew the person who was ahead of all this. I never met the other parties. But one of them went to Tire Kingdom, and when he got my tires, I guess he went back to the store another time to get more tires for somebody else, and then he got arrested. And when he got arrested, he told them, he said, I work for a white lady. Her name is this, and she drives this kind of car, and she works at. And the police officer told me that when he located me, it took him 3 months to be able to speak to me. Because I had been at my job for 23 years and 7 months. And the people at my company knew me as a good person. I was reliable. I came to work when people didn't show up. I worked overtime. I was always at work.
So yeah, that's all good. I mean, like, there's a lot of criminals who are like good people. I mean, we're not like, I don't think we're questioning that. But so the question is though, so you got basically the minimum 24 months because of the tire situation.
I had to pay for the tires. I had to pay for the whole account, even though I only got 2 tires. Whatever this person got, they bought $1,266.60 worth of merchandise, and I had to pay that back.
Oh, so they
that was part
of
my sentence.
Oh. Okay, so part of it was not only the tires, but the person who bought the others.
Right,
money worth of
for
stuff.
Whatever they got, I paid the whole credit card bill back. That was part of my sentence.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let me ask a question, Mo, because I remember speaking with you, and you said when this issue happened, you basically took everything out of the bank because you thought you were gonna do a bunch of time. I think it was what was it?
Well, the federal officer that arrested me, he told me anything that I own will belong to him.
So you took all your money out of the bank, and how much money was that?
It was my retirement money. I spent it in 6 months. I had $64,000. Because I didn't want the federal government to have my money, so I bought my son a car, my other son a car. I spent the money stupidly.
Tell me about your time and because you got sentenced to a camp, but you were behind a fence in Miami. Tell me how was that experience?
That experience was terrible. The night that I went upstairs, they were getting ready to put me in a room with this lady who was psychotic. And the lady officer told the man officer she was not going to put me in that room. She said to him, "Get me the lieutenant. I'm not putting her in there with her." Because the lady was acting like she had a gun in her hand and she was shooting at the door. She was really weird. So they put me in a room by myself. When I went inside the room, they threw a mattress with some sheets and a towel and a wash rag in the room, and they locked me in. In the room, there was ketchup and mustard smeared all over the beds. There was orange seeds all over. The room had spiders. It was terrible. And I was in the room crying, but I was by myself. And there was a shower and a sink. And I remember seeing a dirty wash rag on the floor, and there was a bar of soap sitting on the sink. So I took it and I started washing the bed down and washing the walls down and the desk that was attached to the floor. And I started cleaning the room, and I was crying and crying. Then I took a shower, and the water was ice cold. There was no hot water.
So, Mo, tell me how long you stayed at the federal hold in Miami to when you went to the camp.
I stayed in the federal hold for 16 days. And then at 2 a.m, they woke me up, and officers woke you up and said, grab your stuff. And they took me downstairs. When I got downstairs, there was 14 women in a room. They were all shackled and handcuffed, ready to go. And you had to walk up these little steps and down the steps so they could book you and shackle you. They shackled you and handcuffed you. And they had you change to a different uniform. And I was crying, and the lady said, "Don't be afraid. I'm going to take you to a nice place." She said, "Try to relax," because I was crying a lot. And I remember I was the last one to get on the bus because I could not step up with the shackles. So the two officers had to actually lift me up to put me on the bus. So they would not take your shackles off.
Let's jump into when you arrived at the camp. We're going to fast forward a little bit to get to a little bit more of the juicy stuff. You got to the camp, and you had a I would say a lot of difficulties with some folks.
I did.
You were kind of labeled what is the term that I would like to use?
Snitch. Snitch.
Yeah, you were labeled a snitch, and you had some people on your head. And I remember specifically one time when you got approached outside on the bench and literally almost got jumped on. And I sat there and I was contemplating, if they hit this lady, what am I going to do? Because as we know, if you get in a fight, even if you part a fight, get involved in the fight, you go into the shoe. What was going through your time?
Well, to start, the one thing about getting to the camp during this time, it was COVID. The hardest part for me was I had 21 days without speaking to my kids. I didn't know what was going on in the outside world for 21 days. I arrived to the camp. They started to call me a snitch. They told me I was prejudiced of black people, which was not true. I was married to a Jamaican. I have biracial children. A gang of women woke me up at 11:26 p.m. Christmas Eve to tell me that I was prejudiced of black people and that they were going to beat me up.
I remember that. My bunk was right across from yours, and I was just in shock. But your response is what made it even worse. Do you remember what your response was?
Yeah. I said the word unfortunately. And they just kept saying it and saying it all night. And the next day, out of the women that came from Miami, 8 of us went to the camp. And one of them I had become really close with. And she told those girls the next day, it was Christmas. She said, if you touch her, you got to see me. Don't put your hands on her.
Pause 1 second. I have just Rico, are you manning the questions? Because we have some questions.
Well, I want to know, like, why was you labeled a snitch?
Because my birthday was December 9th, and I had a video call with my kids that morning. And when I went to use the video call to talk to my kids, there was a shakedown in my dorm. And the girl I was roommates with told everyone that it must be me because I'm up front by the office. But I was up front on a video call. So when I came out of the video call, there were 2 girls that were going to fight me for no reason. Because they said that they heard I was in the office snitching, but I was really on my video call. It was my birthday. And the one girl was going to fight me, and I guess she changed her mind and walked away. So that particular day, they had to move me from one dorm to the other. That's how I became close to Kay's room. I was across from Kay.
And can you let them know what dorm this was? We had several dorms, Cherokee and Seminole.
Yeah, I was in Seminole A, and they moved me to B. And when I went to Seminole B, I was across from Kay, and I was in the room with a lady who had dementia. She was a retired nurse that got caught in some Medicare fraud, and she barely was like someone you could talk to. She was really disoriented, but I was glad to be there instead of where I was, because nobody wants to be called a snitch, especially when you didn't do it.
You were in Cherokee A, and you were being bullied, I think, or picked on, and that's what landed you in Cherokee B in my dorm, correct?
Right.
Okay. One of the questions was, did you stand 10 toes down, and what happened to the guy that was involved? Did he get any time?
He got 48 months, and the other 2 guys got 24 months like me.
Okay. Well, what about restitution? Did you owe any restitution? And for those who don't know, go ahead.
I had to pay back $1,266.60, which I had to pay the first $300 before you go to prison. Whenever there's a deal and you have restitution, you have to pay your PSI, and you have to pay $150 of whatever your restitution is up front before you turn yourself in. It's required by the federal prisons. And once you get to prison, whatever money people send you so that you can eat or have shampoo to wash your hair, because the prison does not provide you personal hygiene items. And people who have not been to prison or to federal prison believe that they take care of you. That is not the case. Some of the food that they feed you, you cannot eat. It's really that bad. Am I telling the truth, Kay? Hello? Kay? Can you hear me?
Okay,
Hello?
looks like she's having a little bit more technical issues, but
I'm
I
here.
think
Can she not hear me?
you.
No, I couldn't
No,
hear
you
you.
went out for a second, Kay.
Oh, okay. These headphones, you guys, is new, and I can't figure out what's mute and unmute. But yes, absolutely right about the kitchen food. That was the worst experience. But I ended up working in the kitchen, and that's how I gained over 20 pounds. So yeah, food was terrible. Did you You did only 6 months and a few days, and that is because of what they had known as the CARES Act at the time, where you could, if you had a disability such as high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, asthma, you could get out at 25%. Usually you do 85% of your time, but if you had one of those illnesses, you would get out at 25%. And that is why she only served that small amount of time. Let me tell you guys, this lady cried every day for her kids.
Every day.
That I thought were young kids, to find out that they were in the 20s and 18. But kids are kids, so you know.
And people in prison used to make fun of me. If you remember, Kay, I used to walk around with a pad of paper, envelopes, and a pen, and I used to write my kids a letter every day. And people used to make fun of me and say, "Oh, what are you doing? You're writing another letter." And I used to tell people that I'm writing the president. I have a diary that I kept from day one of everything that went on. I even have it written down when we had the national lockdown for 21 days and we could not go outside the dorm. We had no televisions. We had no access to phones or emails. All we could do is mail a letter, and you didn't know if the police officers were mailing those letters or not because you didn't communicate with your family for 21 days.
Okay, let's fast forward to when you left. You left on the CARES Act. You had to be on a monitor. After the monitor, you had to go right into probation. I want to let the people know, because while we're there, they say that there's felon-friendly jobs, and you had a really hard time getting a job. So tell us about that.
They say there's felon-friendly jobs. I worked at Publix for 90 days in the deli, was not dealing with money, and after 90 days of working there, they let me go. They said that the corporate made a decision that my aggravated identity theft was one of the charges that they could not hire a convicted felon for. So they terminated my employment. I've worked at several places in the last 2 or 3 years because of the charge. It is very difficult to get a job. Walmart will not hire me because of aggravated identity theft, and Walmart is a convicted felon-friendly company. Publix. So I've had a very difficult time with employment, to say the least. And for anyone out there that's going through it, keep trying. One of the things that I can say, out of all the bad things that have happened, I did come home from prison on the ankle monitor for 7 months. While I was in Mariana, I did find out that I had a lump in my breast. So while I was home on the ankle monitor, I had 3 surgeries, and I had to do chemo and radiation throughout that process, which, being that I was ill, was a very tough process, because every time I had to have surgery, I would have to go to the halfway house at 6 a.m., remove the ankle monitor, go to the hospital, call them and tell them I'm at the hospital, have surgery, wake up from surgery, call them and tell them I'm done, and I'd have 1 hour to get the ankle monitor back on. So if anyone hasn't gone through that, or know someone who has, it's not easy at all. And during my time, the reason I brought up the part about writing the president, because I still have the intention to sit down one day and write him about how people are treated in prison. We're not treated like humans, to say the least. But I created a prison ministry. It's called The Women I Left Behind. And what I do is I help those women that I left at Mariana and other facilities. And not only do I help the women, I help their children. I help their children at Christmas. I help their children on Thanksgiving and on Easter, so that I can bring some relief to them, knowing that there's someone out there that still cares. Because a lot of times when someone makes a poor choice and they go to prison, their family and friends desert them. I was a very well-liked person, and I was a very caring person, and that's why I don't have any money today, because I was helping everybody I knew. But when I went to prison, the people I expected to be there for me, they were not. And the people who showed up were people that I didn't expect. So I share that with everyone today. If you have someone that's in prison and it wasn't you, and you're just listening to this conversation, don't forget that person is human. They have a heart. They might have made a poor choice, but they still need you. Hello?
This is absolutely true. She was God's, well, she is God sent for the people who are still incarcerated. When she left, she actually put money on my commissary, and I told her not to, just to get snacks and make sure that I could email her back when she emailed me. Because if I'm not mistaken, you can read the emails for free, but you had to pay to send one, or vice versa. I'm not sure. And if you sent a long email, you had to read it fast because it charged you by the minutes or whatever it was. So we have a question. Somebody wanted to know if you got debrief from the feds at the beginning of the case.
I don't believe so. The lawyer that I had, he represented everything.
So you weren't able to talk to the feds to get your side of the story out, or, I mean...
No, I never did. When I was indicted, my attorney told me to come to the federal courthouse on a certain day at a certain time. I was going to have a hearing, and I was going to plead not guilty. And when I arrived to the federal prison, I brought my children, not knowing that I was going to not be arrested inside the courtroom like he told me. He told me when I got to the courtroom that they would walk me over, book me, and then I would bond out and they would release me. That's not what occurred. Everything he told me was false. When I arrived to the parking lot, he called me to ask me where I was. I told him where I was parking, and a black car pulled up, and officers jumped out and arrested me while I was driving my car. I didn't even get to turn the car off. They opened the door and took me out, handcuffed me in front of my kids, and took me away. So everything that he told me was not the way it went down.
Oh, wow. That's serious. You said one of the co-defendants got 48 months. Why was that? Why did he get 48 and everybody else got 24?
Because he was the ringleader. And I guess the other two guys did the plea and gave him in just so that they could be free and get lesser time. I don't know how that occurred, because that occurred after I already was indicted. They found him. I want to tell you, I had a hearing in April, and I got an email from my lawyer sometime around July 4th, and he told me they found him.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. We're going to open up the comment section if anybody wants to ask her a question. And you can send an invite to be added in, and you can ask a question. Just let me know and type in add me, and we can add you right in.
I do have a question. So you were saying originally with the original 12 charges that it was showing up on your record, but it showed up like as dismissed. Was there not a way for you to kind of like get those expunged or get them to not be able to like show up on your file?
Well, when you type my name into Google, it shows up. And when you go to Broward County Clerk of Courts, it shows up. I did not close my record, seal my record. There's two reasons. When you are convicted of a federal crime, I was told by my attorney, you must complete probation and wait 3 years to seal your record. So my probation ended in January of 22. So I will need to wait till after January of 2026 to be able to seal the record. As for the state charges, if anyone really read it, they can see that I was never even at an arraignment. I was never charged. I was arrested, but I was released. And when I was in Mariana, there were people that didn't qualify for the CARES Act because they had their records sealed from a previous crime. And I would hate to go through what they went through and sit. I was fortunate to get 6 months and 6 days, but I know someone personally who had to stay for the entire sentence because she sealed her record. So I don't know that that's the right choice to make. I mean, if someone wants to hire you and you're honest with them up front, then they'll hire you regardless of the situation.
Right.
But that's the only limitation that I'm having with the arrest is the employment part of it. Nothing else has affected me other than the fact that I was there for 6 months and 6 days away from my family and friends.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, Mo, I appreciate you joining us today. We are going to wrap up this interview. Tell us one more time about your prison ministry, what you do, and how they can get in touch with you.
My prison ministry is to send cards and money to the prisoners that I left behind, and to also give money and cards to their children during holidays, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. That's what I do. If anyone is interested in helping, you can Zelle me, you can Cash App me, and I will forward it to someone who really needs help. My Cash App and Zelle is my phone number, and you feel free that you can call me. It is 754-366-2801. I would use the money to either help a child or help the prisoner. You have to designate that with me. Currently, I have one lady that I am helping that has a daughter that lives with her dad, and she's only 12 years old. Her grandma just passed away, and all she has is her dad, so I like to help her a little bit because she's just there with the dad alone. Then I have another lady who's a grandmother who has 3 kids, and they're all underage, and she's struggling financially to take care of those 3 kids, but she's doing it by herself. So I try to help her as much as I can.
Okay, if you could drop your phone number and information, email as well, if you have one, in the chat. We have a question. Someone wants to know, how do you find people or prisoners that are in need? And just so we are clear, this is for federal prison, not state. She's helping those that are in the federal prison system like she was.
The way I find people is like when I left, I asked Kay if she knew of anyone who was not receiving money. And when I was there, even though some of the people that I have helped were not my friends. I never sat down and held a conversation with them, but I knew that they never went to the commissary line to pick up things, or they didn't have snacks in their room. They'd be in the TV room and people would give them something. Those are the people that I'm helping. And I'm helping people that have long sentences, because it seems that when people make a poor choice or go to prison, their family and friends forget about them. Whether they're mad at them for going, whether they're financially struggling out here, but they forget about those family members. So the women that I help do not get money from the outside. And I just want to mention this. One of the biggest things for me was to be able to get mail. I used to sit outside at the picnic table when they had mail call, waiting for my name to be called. And when it wasn't called, it was a sadness that you felt over yourself, because no one was thinking of you. That one piece of mail, that 44-cent stamp, that 50-cent card from the Dollar Tree means a lot to someone who is sitting in prison. It means more than money, believe it or not, and a kind word. So that's what I do with my prison ministry. I buy the cards, I give them out at church, and then the people at church accept the cards randomly during offering time, and then they give to the prisoner whatever's on their heart to do. And I never designate an amount. Because $20 can help someone buy shampoo, conditioner, and some body wash for the month. Again, it's not free. Kay, I can't see how to get into the chat to put my email or phone. So can I send it to you so you can put it in for me?
Absolutely. Again, what is your phone number?
754-366-2801.
Okay.
And my email is babe, B-A-B-E.
Slow down 1 second.
Garvey.
Email babe
Garvey at yahoo.com.
Okay, I think I got it. This is for families in need. Email babegarvey at yahoo.com. Use the phone number 754-366-2802 for Zelle.
No, it's 366-2801. 754-366-2801.
Okay, I'll correct that. So if you have a family member that is in the federal prison, please reach out to Babe Garvey at yahoo.com or 754-366-2801. She has a prison ministry where her church helps families and with monetary donations or cards or calendars or anything, just to shine some light, make us a prisoner, an inmate, feel better about getting some mail. So again, if nobody has any questions, we will wrap up this session. I thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, live in your truth. No matter what your past is, you have the power to create a brighter future. Stay strong, stay positive, and let's make a difference together. Until next time, take care.